Picture yourself being cast out from the sole sanctuary you ever knew, engulfed in despair and utterly alone. Amina's life took a turn when she encountered a billionaire who transformed her world. This narrative unfolds not merely as a rescue, but as a saga of treachery, startling revelations, and an unexpected romance that catches everyone off guard. What journey did Amina undertake to rise from her humble beginnings as a maid to achieve something far more significant? Discover it now. In a quaint little town where whispers traveled fast, there resided a young woman named Amina. She was a solitary figure, reserved yet diligent in her efforts. Amina possessed just a single aspect of her existence, a position at a modest laundry shop where she meticulously washed, ironed, and folded garments for individuals who hardly acknowledged her presence. The shop transcended mere employment. It was her sanctuary. In the corner lay a small mat, her nightly refuge, accompanied by a solitary cup and plate, the entirety of her possessions. Still, Amina felt a sense of gratitude. "At least I have a place to call home," she often murmured to herself. On a radiant morning, Amina perched on her mat, savoring her modest bowl of Gary immersed in water. The shop had just been opened by her boss when the first customer of the day entered, a stylish woman adorned in vibrant yellow lace. Amina swiftly dried her hands on her dress and seized a cup of water to refresh her face before diving into her tasks. As she strolled through the doorway, she remained oblivious to the woman entering the shop simultaneously. They crashed into each other. "Hey, are you blind?" the woman exclaimed, glaring at her dress, now soaked through with water. Amina felt a heavy weight in her chest. "Oh, my apologies, Ma. I didn't notice you there. Please, allow me to take care of that." She extended her hand to gently brush the fabric. "Don't come any closer," the woman retorted, retreating a step. "Are you aware of the cost of this dress, this filthy girl?" Amina bowed her head. "I sincerely apologize, Ma. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" the woman snapped. Her voice pierced the morning air with a sharpness that demanded attention. Is that how things are done around here? No courtesy, no professionalism?" Before Amina could respond, the woman brushed past her and marched into the small office where Amina's boss was seated. Amina remained motionless, her hands shaking slightly. The woman's furious voice echoed in her ears. "Fire her," the woman exclaimed. "If this is the kind of person you hire, I'm taking my business elsewhere. I can't tolerate such negligence." Amina's boss, a bald man with weary eyes, attempted to soothe her agitation. "Madam, if you would be so kind. It's not that serious. She's a good worker." "I don't care," the woman shouted. "If you don't let her go, I'm finished with your store. And remember, my fiancé is one of your most loyal customers." The boss let out a deep sigh. He stepped out of the office and dialed Amina's number. She advanced, her heart racing as though it might explode from her chest. "Amina," he murmured, his gaze drifting away from hers. I'm at a loss for words." "Please, sir, I didn't intend to—" "Amina," he interrupted her. "You've done well, but I can't risk losing a client like her. I'm sorry, but you'll need to go." Amina sank to her knees. "Oh, please, sir. I beg you, don't proceed with this. I have nowhere to go. This is my home, my place to eat. Please, sir, don't send me away." Her boss regarded her with sympathy, yet he shook his head. "Amina, I regret to inform you that my hands are tied." The elegantly attired woman lingered in the doorway, a smirk playing on her lips. "That will teach you to watch where you're going," she remarked before departing, leaving Amina on the floor, tears streaming down her face. Her universe had just shattered. Where might she venture? What methods would she employ to endure? The day was just starting, yet for Amina, it seemed as though it had already reached its conclusion. Amina crouched on the laundry shop floor, her head resting heavily in her hands. The tears kept flowing endlessly. She cast a final glance at her superior. "Please, sir, I find myself without a destination. I am determined to put in more effort. I will rise earlier each day. Please, don't send me away," Amina pleaded, her voice quivering with emotion. Her boss let out a heavy sigh, his hand pressed against his forehead. Amina, the focus isn't on your effort. I truly value your support, but that woman is my top client. Losing her would have a significant impact on my business. I apologize for the situation. You must go now. But where can I possibly go? Amina sobbed. This is the only place I have. How will I eat? Please, sir, have mercy on me. Amina, he said, turning away from her tear-filled gaze. I've already decided. You can't remain here any longer. Just gather your belongings. Amina felt as though her entire world was collapsing. She surveyed the small shop that had been her world for the past 2 years. Though it was modest, it had been her sanctuary. She was utterly alone, devoid of companionship, support, and resources. That evening, carrying only a small bag of her clothes, Amina wandered through the streets without a clear destination. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a serene stillness over the town, broken only by the distant hum of passing cars. She sensed a profound invisibility, as if the universe had erased her presence from its memory. As she meandered, her gaze fell upon a structure still in the throes of construction. The towering walls loomed above, devoid of any doors or windows for the time being. She glanced in and observed a smooth expanse of cement blocks. It may not have been secure, yet it was preferable to resting on the pavement. Amina stepped inside, placed her bag on the chilly floor, and settled in. "Oh, please, grant me your aid," she murmured. She sprawled on the floor, her wrapper draped over her like a makeshift blanket. The night stretched on, frigid and endless. Yet she remained alert, her thoughts swirling with anticipation for the dawn ahead. The following morning, the murmur of voices roused Amina from her slumber. She jolted upright, her eyes widening at the sight of a group of men entering the building, tools in hand and helmets perched on their heads. They froze in place at the sight of her. "Who are you, and what brings you here?" one of the men inquired, his tone steady yet gentle. Amina rose to her feet, her hands trembling. "I apologize, sir. I had no intention of intruding. I recently lost my job, and I'm eager for the chance to contribute here. I am ready and willing to assist with the construction work. I will do whatever it takes." The men shared looks, a few of them nodding in disapproval. This task is not suited for women," one of them remarked. It's a demanding task, hoisting hefty blocks, blending cement. Are you certain you can manage this?" I can handle it, sir," Amina replied, her tone resolute. "I'm strong. Just give me a chance." The men paused, murmuring quietly to one another. At last, one of them remarked, "You need to speak with the boss. He'll arrive shortly." Amina nodded in acknowledgement. "Thank you, kind sir." She settled into a quiet corner of the building, observing the workers as they commenced their tasks, a sense of patience enveloping her. The air was thick with the scent of cement, while the rhythmic clanging of hammers resonated all around her. Amina experienced a subtle spark of optimism. Approximately an hour later, a tall figure clad in a white shirt and safety boots entered the building. His expression was stern, and he appeared to be someone who wouldn't tolerate foolishness. The workers swiftly assembled around him, detailing Amina's predicament. The man approached Amina, his gaze sweeping over her from head to toe. "So, you're interested in joining us?" he inquired, his tone resonant. "Absolutely, sir," Amina replied, her posture unwavering. "I find myself without a destination, and survival is my only priority. I shall give it my all." The man arched an eyebrow. "This is not a venue for amusement. If you can't manage it, you'll have to go. Do you get that?" Yes, sir. I get it." Very well," he replied after a lengthy silence. "You can start tomorrow." A spark of excitement ignited on Amina's face. "Thank you, sir. God bless you, sir." As the workers resumed their duties, Amina remained in the corner, tears flowing down her cheeks. This moment arises not from despair, but from a flicker of optimism. The following morning, Amina embarked on her inaugural day at the site. The sun blazed overhead, and the labor proved to be more challenging than she had anticipated. She balanced heavy blocks atop her head, skillfully mixed cement with sand, and diligently fetched water from a nearby tap. Despite the ache in her arms and the weakness in her legs, She pressed on without hesitation. The workers observed her with astonishment. "Wow, this girl is incredibly strong," one of them remarked. Another chuckled. To be honest, she's outperforming some of the guys here." Amina brushed off their remarks and continued her work. She understood that there was no alternative. This was her opportunity, and she couldn't let it slip away. 1 week later, Mr. Francis, the owner of the building, made an unexpected arrival. He exuded an air of sophistication, his attire impeccable, and his demeanor a blend of tranquility and authority. As he strolled through the site, examining the progress, he observed something out of the ordinary. In the corner of the site, a young girl balanced heavy blocks atop her head. Her garments bore the marks of cement, and beads of sweat cascaded down her face, yet she pressed on undeterred. "Who is that girl?" Mr. Francis inquired of the engineer, gesturing towards Amina. The engineer paused for a moment before responding, Sir, her name is Amina. She has been with us for approximately a week now." "Why is she engaged in this type of work?" "This isn't suitable for a young girl," Mr. Francis remarked, his brow furrowed. The engineer detailed how Amina found herself without options and had pleaded for the opportunity to contribute through work. She demonstrates remarkable diligence, sir. She remains silent and completes her tasks." Mr. Francis shook his head. This isn't acceptable. Bring her here." The engineer acknowledged and gestured for Amina to come over. She swiftly brushed her face with the hem of her dress and approached the group where they stood. "Good morning, sir," Amina greeted, offering a slight bow. "Good morning," Mr. Francis greeted, his tone warm yet resolute. What's your name?" "Amina, sir." "Amina, why are you engaging in this line of work? Don't you realize it's perilous and quite challenging for someone in your position?" Amina averted her gaze. "I have no alternative, sir. My survival depends on this. Please, sir, don't send me away. I'll do anything to keep this job." Mr. Francis let out a heavy sigh. "A young girl like you deserves a different kind of life. You must halt your progress here. I will discuss this with the engineer. This work cannot proceed." Amina felt a heavy weight in her chest. She parted her lips to utter a sound, yet silence enveloped her. Her eyes brimmed with tears as she gazed at Mr. Francis, yearning for a shift in his decision. The sun dipped below the horizon as the engineer beckoned Amina to step aside. His expression was burdened, and Amina felt a weight in her chest even before he uttered a word. "Amina," he started with a measured tone, "Mr. Francis mentioned that you can't keep working here. It's for your own good," he insisted. "You're too young to bear this kind of burden." Amina felt a tightness in her chest. "Please, sir, I beg you. I have no place to turn. I will put in more effort, I assure you." "I don't even mind staying here overnight," the engineer replied, shaking his head. That choice isn't mine to make. It's time for you to go. I regret this, but you know the saying? Every setback carries a hidden gift. I trust that a greater opportunity awaits you." Tears streamed down Amina's face as she gathered her sparse belongings and relocated to another unfinished structure. That night, as she rested on the unforgiving cement floor, Amina experienced a profound sense of solitude. She wrapped her arms around herself, trembling in the chill of the night. "Why me, God?" she murmured, her voice trembling. "What did I do to deserve this?" Silence enveloped the question, offering no response. In the meantime, Mr. Francis made his way to the laundry to retrieve his freshly laundered garments. The owner welcomed him with a friendly smile. Good evening, sir. Welcome." Good evening, Mr. Francis responded, presenting his receipt. As he waited for his clothes, he surveyed the shop, his mind wandering back to Amina. There was an undeniable impression she left on him, a lingering sensation that she was in need of assistance. "Pardon me," he addressed the owner. Are you familiar with a girl named Amina? She was employed here." The owner's cheerful demeanor diminished. "Amina? There was an issue with one of our clients. The woman was dissatisfied and insisted that I let her go. It was your fiancé, Chinny, who insisted she had to leave." Mr. Francis blinked in astonishment. Chinny? Are you certain? Yes, sir. She was quite distressed that Amina spilled water on her attire. She even threatened to stop bringing her laundry here if I didn't fire the girl. Francis paused, lost in thought. Do you have any idea where Amina might be at this moment? The owner simply shook his head. I have no information on that, sir. She simply walked away. I doubt she had a destination in mind. Francis expressed his gratitude to the owner and gathered his belongings, yet his thoughts remained unsettled. What could possibly motivate Chinny to take such drastic action against a girl for something so trivial? And where had Amina gone now? As he navigated the road home that evening, Francis was overwhelmed by a profound sense of guilt. He understood that he must locate Amina, regardless of the time it required. A few days later, Amina strolled along the roadside, her slippers offering little defense against the harsh terrain beneath her feet. She embraced herself tightly, yearning for a flicker of warmth. The road lay in stillness, interrupted only by the rare rush of a car zooming by. Out of nowhere, brilliant headlights illuminated the road ahead, and a sleek black SUV came to a halt next to her. The window slid open, and a recognizable voice rang out. Amina. She halted, her senses heightened as she tried to discern the identity of the caller. It was indeed Mr. Francis. Sir? Amina's voice trembled, caught in a dilemma between fleeing and remaining still. What are you doing here at this hour? Francis inquired, his tone laced with worry. I don't have anywhere to go, she confessed softly, her gaze fixed on the ground. Francis scowled. Get in the car. Amina paused, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. Sir, I don't wish to intrude. You're not intruding. I can't abandon you in this state. Please enter. After a brief pause, Amina stepped into the car. As they drove, Francis inquired about her life experiences. She shared with him the details of the laundry job, the unfinished building, and her ongoing struggle to make ends meet. Francis let out a heavy sigh. You're too young to be dealing with all of this. You should come over to my place. I will secure a position for you there. Amina's eyes grew wide with surprise. Your house? But sir, no excuses, Francis interjected. Assistance is required, and I am here to provide it. It's all right, Amina finally agreed. Thank you, sir. God bless you. By the time they reached Francis's house, the hour was already late. The mansion exuded warmth, its expansive windows inviting the light in, while the garden was meticulously maintained, showcasing a sense of order and beauty. Amina was utterly astonished. As they entered, Cheney emerged from the living room, her gaze sharpening upon spotting Amina. Who is this? Cheney asked, her voice cutting through the air. Francis maintained his composure. Amina is her name. She'll be staying here. What? Cheney's voice escalated. This filthy girl? In my home? Are you kidding me, Francis? No, I'm not, he answered with conviction. She requires assistance, and I have made the choice to offer my support. That's final, Cheney exclaimed, throwing her hands in the air. Francis, have you completely lost your senses? Are you aware of the gossip that will ensue if they find her here? I'm indifferent to their opinions, Francis replied, his tone unwavering. Amina will be staying. She'll work here and have a place to sleep. Cheney shot a piercing look at Amina, who remained quiet, feeling out of place. This isn't solely your choice, Francis. It is now, Francis replied. She will be staying in the guest room. Mr. Francis then guided Amina to her room. The bed appeared invitingly plush, complemented by a quaint little window adorned with delicate curtains. Amina settled into her seat, her heart racing. As she settled into bed that night, an unsettling feeling lingered in her mind. Cheney's fury resonated unmistakably, and Amina sensed that her challenges could still be far from resolved. From the instant Amina began her duties in the house, Cheney regarded her as an annoyance. Every small action Amina took appeared to irritate her. Is this how you sweep? Look at the corners. Cheney snapped one morning, gesturing at the already immaculate floor. I apologize, Ma, Amina murmured softly, taking hold of the broom to begin sweeping once more. Pity yourself, Cheney spat, turning away with a scowl. The words were not merely harsh. Cheney ensured that Amina experienced a profound sense of unwelcomeness at every turn. She consistently denied Amina the opportunity to eat, asserting, "This house is not a free-for-all. If you're hungry, take care of whatever you brought from outside." One evening, Francis returned home sooner than normal and discovered Amina alone in the kitchen, gazing at an empty plate. "Amina, have you had a chance to eat?" he inquired. Amina paused for a moment, then firmly shook her head. "No, sir. Why not? There's food in this house." Amina averted her eyes. "Madam instructed me not to eat." A shadow crossed Francis's eyes. He burst into the living room, finding Cheney absorbed in her phone. "Why are you depriving her?" he questioned. Cheney remained completely unfazed, not even glancing up. "I have no idea what you're referring to." "Don't act like that," Francis replied with conviction. "Amina is here to work, not to endure. Go and bring her food now." Cheney chuckled darkly. "You're allowing this girl to feel too at ease, Francis." "Very well, if that's your wish." A short while later, Cheney set a bowl of thin soup and a small piece of yam before Amina. "Here," she remarked, her tone laced with irony. "Savor it." Amina's hands quivered as she grasped the spoon. She was unable to halt the tears streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you, Ma," she murmured, her voice trembling. Cheney smirked and turned away, leaving Amina to weep quietly into her food. In the face of adversity, Amina continued to embody kindness. She continued her tasks in silence, steering clear of any potential issues. After a long day at work, Francis returned home. The silence enveloped the house, and Cheney seemed to have vanished into thin air. He attempted to reach her by phone, yet she remained unresponsive. Suddenly, it dawned on him that she had mentioned just a few days prior that she was going to a party. Perhaps she remains at the gathering, Francis pondered as he made his way to his room. The hour was late, nearing midnight, as Cheney made his way back home. The sudden crash of the door startled Amina awake. Cheney was swaying, her makeup smeared across her face, and her clothes reeked of alcohol. She stumbled through the door, barely managing to keep herself upright before she doubled over, retching in the living room. Amina hurriedly exited her room. "Madam, are you all right?" she inquired, concern etched on her face. Cheney merely gestured feebly and collapsed onto the floor. In silence, Amina took hold of a mop and set about tidying the chaos. She extended her hand to Cheney, assisting her in standing up. "Allow me to escort you to your chamber, madam," Amina murmured gently, though the task of supporting Cheney, who was leaning heavily against her, proved to be quite a challenge. Amina finally guided her to the bed and sensed that something was amiss. Cheney's body radiated an intense heat. "Oh, she's running a fever," Amina murmured. She hurried to the kitchen, fetched a bowl of cold water, and started gently dabbing Cheney's forehead with a cloth. After a while, Cheney stirred awake, but rather than expressing gratitude to Amina, she glared at her with resentment. "What are you doing? Why are you touching me?" Cheney exclaimed. "Madam, you seemed unwell." "I was merely attempting to assist you," Amina clarified, still grasping the damp cloth. "How dare you touch my skin with those filthy hands?" Cheney shouted. She seized the bowl of water and poured it over Amina's head, soaking her clothes thoroughly. Amina remained frozen, her gaze brimming with unshed tears. "I was just trying to lend a hand," she murmured softly. At that moment, Francis entered the room. He gazed at the water pooling on the floor, Amina drenched and Cheney shouting in the background. Francis furrowed his brow and inquired, "What is happening here?" Cheney directed his gaze toward Amina. "She believes she can reach me with her tainted hands." Francis glanced at Cheney, his tone resolute. Are you even listening to yourself? You returned home in this state, intoxicated and sick, and rather than expressing gratitude for her care, you're hurling insults? How can you be so callous, Cheney?" Cheney attempted to respond, but Francis interrupted her. "Enough. I don't want to hear anything from you." He approached Amina and softly grasped her hand. "Join me," he urged. He guided Amina into the living room, offered her a towel to dry off, and settled beside her. "Don't allow her words to wound you," Francis said with compassion. You possess a kind spirit, Amina. That was unwarranted. Amina dried her tears. I was merely attempting to assist, sir. It was never my intention to upset her. Francis gazed at her, offering a gentle smile. You haven't done anything wrong. You surpass her in countless ways. As they lingered in that moment, a warm and unspoken connection enveloped them. Francis was consumed by thoughts of Amina's warmth, while Amina found solace in his company. Their minds would forever hold onto that moment. Francis was perpetually occupied, often overlooking the minor details around the house. However, recently, there had been a shift. Each evening, as he returned home weary, Amina greeted him at the door with a comforting smile. Welcome, sir. How was your day? She inquired softly. Initially, Francis responded with brief replies. It was fine, or busy as usual. Yet, on one particular evening, Amina's sincere curiosity caused him to hesitate. Honestly, it was quite stressful, he confessed. There are just too many meetings. Amina nodded in agreement. Apologies, sir. I see you've been putting in a lot of effort. Would you care for a cup of tea? Francis blinked. It was a seemingly small act, yet it resonated with him profoundly. Yes, please. That would be lovely. As Amina slipped away into the kitchen, Francis found his thoughts drifting to her. She maintained her composure and showed respect, even in the face of Chinny's harshness. In stark contrast to Chinny, who seldom inquired about his day or expressed any genuine concern, her sole focus seems to be on extracting money to support her extravagant way of living. Yet, Amina's kindness shone brightly. In the days that followed, Francis began to observe more keenly. Amina would effortlessly organize her surroundings, taking initiative without needing any prompts. Her warm smile welcomed everyone she encountered. She had a way of bringing a lightness that enveloped the house in warmth, despite Chinny's relentless grumbling. One evening, while Chinny voiced her grievances over something trivial, Francis found his attention drifting away from her and towards Amina, who was diligently folding clothes in the corner. He scowled, coming to the unsettling realization that he was starting to draw comparisons between the two women. Francis chose to take a considerate action. After work, he visited a boutique and selected dresses, a few for Chinny and one for Amina. Upon arriving home, he distributed the bags to each of them. Chinny took hers with a scowl. What's this? She inquired, her brow furrowing as she examined the bag. Just a small gift for you, Francis said with a straightforward tone. Chinny glanced at the dress for a moment before carelessly throwing it onto the couch. Thanks, I suppose. Meanwhile, Amina gazed at the bag, her expression one of utter disbelief. Is this for me, sir? Indeed, Amina. Please, go ahead and open it, Francis urged. With quivering fingers, Amina retrieved a dress that was both simple and exquisite. Her eyes brimmed with tears as she held it tightly against her heart. Thank you, sir, she uttered, her voice trembling. No one has ever given me a gift before, Francis said with a smile. You deserve it, Amina. You've been working so hard. Chinny, who had been observing from the sidelines, suddenly erupted. What is all this nonsense? She exclaimed. Why are you purchasing gifts for her? Are you attempting to humiliate me in this home? Francis asked her with a composed demeanor. Chinny, it's merely a dress. Why are you turning this into such a fuss? Chinny scoffed. A dress, is it? I see what's happening. You're starting to prefer her over me, aren't you? Tread carefully, Francis. Amina took a step back, gripping the dress firmly. I apologize if I created any issues, Ma, she spoke gently. Silence, Chinny commanded, jabbing a finger at Amina. Oh, you think you're clever, do you? I've got my eye on you. Francis let out a deep sigh, massaging his forehead. Chinny, cut the theatrics. Amina belongs to this household, and I will show her the respect she deserves. If that's too much for you to accept, perhaps it's time to reconsider your perspective. With that, Chinny stormed away, forcefully closing the door, leaving Amina standing still, tears of happiness flowing down her cheeks. The following morning, as Francis departed for work, a hush enveloped the house. Amina stood in the kitchen, the the sound of Chinny's footsteps echoing softly behind her. She turned around, but before Amina could utter a word, Chinny's furious voice sliced through the atmosphere. "Do you really believe you can just stroll in here and steal my man from me?" Chinny exclaimed. Her eyes burned with rage. "Dash, you're just a filthy girl attempting to take what isn't yours." Amina stepped back, her heart pounding. "Dash, madam, Dash, silence," Chinny exclaimed, advancing forward. "Dash, you have no idea where you stand. Just because he got you a silly dress, you think that makes you important? It doesn't." Before Amina could say anything, Chinny burst into the room where the dress Francis had purchased for Amina was displayed. With a wicked grin, she seized the dress and strode out the door. Amina trailed behind, her voice trembling. "Dash, I implore you, madam, refrain. That dress holds immense significance for me." "Dash, silence," Chinny interjected, brandishing the dress towards the flames. "Dash, this is the consequence of attempting to seize what belongs to me." Amina's eyes widened in disbelief as she witnessed the flames engulf the dress. She was frozen in place, her tears streaming down without restraint. "Please, don't do this," she implored, but Chinny remained unyielding. "Dash, you'll never measure up to him. I'll see to it," Chinny taunted. As the last remnants of the dress turned to ash, Chinny pivoted and strode away, leaving Amina behind, tears streaming down her face. Amina found herself at a crossroads, uncertain of her next steps or destination. She was utterly depleted. A week later, as Francis prepared to head to the building site, he caught sight of Amina in the yard. He smiled at her and inquired, "Amina, would you be interested in visiting the building site today? A few of your former colleagues from the construction site are there. I'm certain they would be delighted to see you once more." Amina's face brightened. She had always appreciated the efforts of the workers at the site. They had shown her kindness, offering their support when she needed it the most. Reuniting with them would serve as a wonderful expression of her gratitude. "Absolutely, I would be thrilled," Amina responded, her heart pounding with exhilaration. Francis approached the car with a smile, patiently anticipating Amina's arrival. Amina hurriedly dashed indoors to prepare herself. She aimed to present herself perfectly for the reunion, yet as she finally emerged, Francis' smile diminished. He gazed at her, taken aback. "Amina, what's with that old dress?" Amina stood still. Her heart sank. She was unable to reveal the truth to him. Not at this moment. Not when Chinny had instilled so much fear in her. I'm saving the new dress for a special occasion," she murmured, her eyes drifting away from his. Chinny stood quietly in the corner, observing them intently. Her gaze was piercing, signaling to Amina that silence was imperative. She offered a subtle hint with her gaze. "If you share anything with him, you'll wish you hadn't." Amina paused, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. She was caught in a dilemma, torn between the desire to please Francis and the fear of provoking Chinny. She cast a glance over her shoulder at Chinny, whose eyes were fixed on her with a fierce intensity. Francis noticed the uncertainty flickering in Amina's gaze. He elevated his tone. "Amina, what's the matter? Get in the car. We're leaving right now." Amina remained frozen, uncertain of her next move. Chinny continued to observe, and fear gripped Amina. However, Francis caught sight of Chinny in the corner, her eyes brimming with animosity. He grasped the situation clearly. "Amina," Francis called out once more. "Get in the car. I said now." With a resigned breath, Amina made her way to the vehicle. Reluctantly, she settled into the car, hoping to avoid further complications. "Let's go," Francis urged Amina. As the car pulled away, Amina cast a glance back at Chinny, who remained fixed on them with a fierce glare. Amina stood at the precipice of uncertainty, acutely aware that one truth anchored her amidst the unknown. Chinny was determined to ensure that Amina was completely removed from the scene, no matter what it took. One afternoon, Chinny summoned Amina to the living room. "Amina, come here. Sit down, let's talk," she said in a soothing, gentle tone. Amina felt a wave of astonishment wash over her. Chinny had always prohibited her from sitting on the couch. After a brief pause, she made her way over and settled down with care. There's no need to be afraid, Chinny reassured her, motioning for her to ease up. Let's just talk. Amina settled onto the couch, her mind swirling with uncertainty about the situation. Chinny's voice took on a gentle quality as she started to express her thoughts. I realize I've been tough on you since you arrived here. I've spoken out of turn and haven't treated you as you deserve. However, today, I wish to set things right, Chinny stated, meeting Amina's gaze with sincerity. From now on, I want to treat you like my younger sister. I hope you can forgive me for my past mistakes. Amina blinked in confusion, but then a gentle smile appeared on her face. Ma, I bear no resentment. We're good. I appreciate you letting me stay in your home, she said, attempting to mirror Chinny's tone. For a brief instant, it felt as though the weight of the tension had dissipated. Chinny returned the smile, her eyes radiating a warmth that Amina had never encountered before. May I request a small favor from you? She inquired, her tone soft and inviting. Anything, Ma? Amina responded, keen to maintain harmony. Chinny beamed. I'm not skilled in the kitchen. Would you mind whipping up some noodles for me? Amina's expression brightened. She felt a sense of joy in doing something for Chinny, particularly as it appeared that circumstances were getting better. Absolutely. I'll get that done immediately. She rushed to the kitchen, prepared the noodles, and served a bowl to Chinny as soon as it was ready. Chinny's expression brightened as Amina placed the bowl before her. Amina then took her leave and retreated to her room, believing that all was well. Moments later, Chinny's voice echoed from the living room, cutting through the silence. Amina felt a jolt of adrenaline as she hurried outside to discover the unfolding situation. Madam, what transpired? Amina inquired, her voice quivering. Chinny stood there, her expression contorted with fury. Are you really trying to poison me? She shouted. Amina's mouth dropped open in disbelief. What did I ever do to you? Madam, I assure you, I didn't add anything to your food. Please trust me, she said, striving to maintain her composure. Chinny directed a pointed finger at Amina, tears cascading down her cheeks. I witnessed it with my own eyes. You tampered with my food. This malicious girl is trying to end my life, she exclaimed, her gaze fixed on Francis as he entered the room. Francis found himself in a state of bewilderment, glancing back and forth between the two women. What's happening here? He inquired, his tone taut. Chinny's wails grew more intense as she directed her finger at Amina. Look at her. She's the one. She's trying to poison me, she exclaimed, her voice rising in desperation. Amina moved ahead, attempting to clarify her position. Madam, I assure you, I didn't add anything to your meal. I was merely attempting to assist. Yet, Chinny remained unresponsive. She persisted in her cries, her eyes large with feigned terror. She's lying, Francis. She's poisoned my food. Amina exclaimed, her desperation to prove her innocence reaching a breaking point. She seized the bowl of noodles that Chinny had hardly touched, and without hesitation, took a generous spoonful right in front of them. There. You see? Amina exclaimed, gulping down the noodles. There's nothing in your food. I didn't poison you. But before she could complete her sentence, Amina was struck by a sudden, intense pain in her stomach. She bent forward, gripping her stomach as the world around her whirled in chaos. Amina! Francis called out, hurrying to her side as she collapsed to her knees, struggling to breathe. What's going on? Are you all right? Amina cried out, agony coursing through her as her sight began to fade. I can't say. It's painful, she sobbed, tears flowing down her cheeks. Chinny lingered at the periphery, observing Amina quietly. A sly grin spread across her face, and laughter bubbled forth from her lips. I told you, Francis, she exclaimed, a hint of joy in her voice. I witnessed it myself. She tainted the food. Francis exclaimed, his voice trembling with urgency. He glanced at Amina, who lay on the floor, gripping her stomach, her breaths coming in shallow gasps. Amina. He lifted her effortlessly, dashing out of the house, thoughts swirling in a frantic whirlwind. He was in disbelief at the unfolding events. What actions had Chinny taken? Could this have been a deception? Amina gradually awoke in the hospital bed. The gentle beeping of the machines was the initial sound that reached her ears. Francis sat beside her, gripping her hand firmly. His expression was clouded with concern, yet upon seeing her alert, his gaze warmed with a sense of comfort. Amina, you're awake. Thank goodness, he exclaimed, his voice trembling. Amina attempted a smile, yet her strength remained diminished. What happened? She inquired softly, her voice almost a breath. You fainted after having the noodles, Francis clarified. But you're all right now. The doctor assured you that you'll be okay. Amina shut her eyes once more, recalling the agony and how Chinny had blamed her. She sensed the tears rising within her, yet remained silent. Francis gazed at her with a solemn expression. Amina, I need to share something with you. He took a moment to gather his thoughts. I reviewed the footage from the living room cameras. Chinny committed an awful act. She orchestrated this. Amina gazed at him, disbelief etched on her face. What do you mean, sir? Chinny, she added something to that food to make it seem like you were poisoning her, Francis stated, his tone becoming increasingly stern with every word. I witnessed everything captured in the footage. She's the one who did this. Amina gazed at him, taken aback. But why? What did I do to deserve this? Francis gazed downward, a weight pressing on his heart. I'm not sure, but I'll ensure she faces the consequences of her actions. With that, he rose from his seat and exited the room, determined to confront Chinny. Upon arriving home, he unleashed his thoughts without restraint. He entered the living room, where Chinny sat waiting. Gather your belongings and exit my home, Francis stated. What's happening? Chinny inquired. Let's not act like you're unaware, Francis responded. A camera resides in this living room, and I have witnessed it all. If I call the police, you'll be in serious trouble, so just go. With that, Francis turned and walked away, leaving Chinny standing there, shaking. She realized escape was no longer an option. With a heavy heart, she silently collected her belongings and departed, her gaze cast downward. As time went by, Amina gradually found her strength returning. She returned to the house, settling into the room that Francis had thoughtfully arranged for her. One afternoon, Francis approached her, taking a seat beside her with a cheerful smile. Amina, he said softly, I just wanted to express my gratitude for you. You didn't deserve any of this. You're a wonderful person, and I want to set things right. Amina gazed at him, still trying to grasp the situation. I'm just relieved that I'm all right, she responded gently. You are more than just fine, Francis went on. I've been contemplating your future quite a bit. You mentioned wanting to return to school, didn't you? Amina nodded slowly, uncertain of his intentions. Francis beamed, his gaze radiating warmth. I've already reached out to the appropriate individuals, and I've ensured that your enrollment is active once more. I'll assist you with the costs. Whatever you require, I'm here to back you up. This is your opportunity to pursue your aspirations. Amina's eyes grew wide. Are you really serious? Absolutely, he replied, his tone steady yet inviting. You deserve every opportunity, Amina. I believe in you. Tears welled in Amina's eyes as she gazed at him, overwhelmed by a profound sense of gratitude. Thank you, sir. You can't imagine how much this means to me. There's no need for thanks, Francis replied, his voice brimming with sincerity. You're part of us now, and we look out for one another. Amina beamed, experiencing a warmth unlike anything she had known before. After what felt like an eternity, she sensed a genuine opportunity ahead, a possibility of a life unburdened by fear and uncertainty. With Francis beside her, Amina felt empowered to conquer any challenge. She found herself in the company of others. One evening, Francis found himself in the living room, deep in contemplation. Amina entered to inquire if he required anything. Her soft smile and soothing voice consistently brought him a sense of peace. Amina, he inquired, his gaze lifting to meet hers. Yes, sir, she responded, standing with poise, her hands neatly clasped before her. Come and sit, Francis invited, Gesturing to the seat next to him, Amina paused for a moment, then took a seat. For a brief moment, he remained silent, simply gazing at her. Then he spoke, his voice gentle yet resolute. Amina, you've faced countless challenges, yet your kindness remains unwavering. You never voice a complaint. Your humility and strength are truly inspiring. Amina blinked, taken aback. Sir, I'm just doing my best. No, it's more than that, Francis replied, locking his gaze with hers. You've transformed my existence in ways I never anticipated. And I believe I've fallen for you. Amina's eyes grew wide. She found herself at a loss for words. I understand this may come as a surprise, Francis pressed on. But my heart has never felt so certain about anything. Sir, Amina began, her voice quaking. You're a big man. I'm just don't say that, Francis interjected softly. It doesn't matter what your past holds. It's all about your essence. And you, Amina, are truly remarkable. Amina cast her gaze downward, her heart pounding. She found herself at a loss for words. No rush, Francis remarked. I just wanted to express my feelings. A few months later, Francis summoned Amina to the living room. This time, he was standing. He stood there, impeccably dressed, a small velvet box cradled in his hand. Amina, he started as she entered, her heart racing. I've come to a decision. I wish for you to be my wife, he declared, causing Amina to gasp in surprise. Are you certain, sir? Francis inquired with a smile. I have never felt more certain about anything in my life. You are everything I've ever wanted. Tears welled up in Amina's eyes as she gazed at him. But I lack the knowledge of what it means to be a wife. I don't understand how to navigate life as you do. We'll discover it side by side, Francis replied, gently clasping her hands. All I need is you by my side. Amina nodded slowly, her heart brimming with joy and a touch of disbelief. Absolutely, I'll marry you. Francis chuckled, wrapping her arms around him in a warm embrace. That's enough, sir. Call me Francis. The wedding was intimate, yet stunning. Close friends and family came together to honor the unexpected romance. Amina donned a modest white dress, captivating Francis's gaze completely. As they exchanged their heartfelt vows, tears glistened in the eyes of everyone present. The narrative unfolded with themes of optimism, affection, and salvation. Amina's life transformed completely. From a girl living on the streets to the beloved wife of a compassionate man, her story exemplified how kindness and determination can bring about unforeseen rewards. Francis honored his commitment to uplift Amina's aspirations. She returned to her studies and subsequently established a foundation aimed at supporting young girls in need. This narrative illustrates that life often unfolds in unforeseen ways, and regardless of the challenges we face, qualities like kindness, humility, and perseverance will invariably prevail. It serves as a reminder to refrain from judging individuals based on their circumstances, but rather to appreciate the kindness within them. Genuine love transcends material possessions, social standing, and physical looks. It's about recognizing the exquisite essence within another and remaining steadfast by their side through all circumstances. To my incredible audience, what insights did you gain from this tale? We'd love to hear your insights in the comments section below. I would be delighted to receive your thoughts. If you found this story enjoyable, I would appreciate a thumbs up to show your support. Be sure to subscribe to my channel to stay updated on the next captivating upload. I truly appreciate your time and attention. Looking forward to sharing my next tale with you soon.